How does the world's top automaker lose $1.3 billion almost overnight? That's exactly what just happened to Toyota. And behind that staggering number is a single culprit: U.S. tariffs. In early May 2025, global headlines erupted. Reuters, Kyoto News, and others echoed the same stunning news. Toyota, once seen as nearly invincible, has taken a brutal financial hit from a trade war it didn't anticipate. Even worse, this isn't a one-off incident. The company now projects a 35% drop in profits for the remainder of the fiscal year, its steepest decline in more than 10 years. For Toyota, this isn't just about lost earnings. It's a strategic shockwave, a warning to every global company caught between sprawling international supply chains and rising waves of economic nationalism. So, how did it all go wrong? It started in March with a sudden policy shift from Washington. The U.S. government rolled out a new round of tariffs on foreign manufactured vehicles and auto parts. The goal? Boost domestic auto jobs and encourage reshoring of key manufacturing sectors. Officials framed the move as economic self-defense, shielding American workers and automakers from what they labeled unfair global competition. But for Toyota, heavily reliant on components from Japan and still assembling many of its models abroad, the financial hit was immediate and massive. These tariffs were not symbolic. They directly targeted key auto segments: engines, drivetrains, semiconductors, and EV battery components. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Toyota was in the middle of ramping up its U.S. operations for the upcoming fiscal cycle. The sudden tariff surge hit its margins like a freight train. CEO Koji Sato didn't mince words. He stated clearly that these measures forced the company to absorb billions in unexpected costs, almost overnight. The numbers laid it all bare. On May 9th, Toyota issued a revised earnings forecast. It now expects net profits of 3.1 trillion yen, or 21.6 billion, for the fiscal year ending March 2026. That's down from 4.7 trillion yen, or $32.8 billion, the previous year. A crushing 35% decline. Investors didn't hesitate. Toyota's Tokyo-listed shares plummeted nearly 7% overnight. The result? Billions wiped off its market value in a single trading session. Financial institutions took notice. Ratings agencies flagged concerns. Analysts at Nomura and J.P. Morgan labeled the development a serious threat to Japan's industrial backbone. But this goes far beyond a balance sheet. If Toyota, long considered a master of global efficiency, can't shield itself from tariff shocks, what does that mean for the rest of the industry? On the ground in Indiana, the reality was even more sobering. In late April, Toyota's Princeton plant, one of its flagship manufacturing sites in the U.S., was forced to temporarily shut down. The cause? Tariff-linked parts shortages, inventory disruptions, and cost-cutting side effects from the new trade environment. Over 5,000 employees, including contractors and logistics personnel, felt the impact. Some were moved to reduced hours. Others faced temporary furloughs. One worker told a local outlet, "They said it was just a pause, but no one knows what's next." This wasn't just a plant. It was a symbol. A reminder that global politics now reach directly into the factories where middle-class livelihoods are tied to supply chains as fragile as they are complex. And tariffs were only the first blow. Toyota also reported $5 billion in losses tied to currency volatility, particularly a weakening yen, which has eroded profit margins on Japanese exports. Add to that a $2.3 billion spike in raw material costs driven by the surging prices of lithium, cobalt, and steel, and the company is dealing with a trifecta of financial pressure. Even Toyota's renowned cost-cutting and lean manufacturing playbook couldn't weather this storm. France 24 put it best. This is a once-in-a-decade convergence of political, monetary, and resource shocks. Unlike previous downturns, this isn't about poor market performance. It's the result of deliberate geopolitical and economic decisions. From tariff hikes to global inflation to unstable supply lines, the factors behind this collapse are systemic and far-reaching. Faced with its most significant U.S. disruption in years, Toyota is now rushing to pivot. In May, the company unveiled a new restructuring initiative aimed at localizing more of its production within the United States. This includes accelerated investments in EV manufacturing and parts production in Kentucky, Texas, and North Carolina. The idea is simple. Avoid future tariffs by building American-made cars with American-made parts. But there's a problem. Building new capacity takes years. Investors are already asking, why didn't this shift come sooner? A senior Toyota executive admitted to Legatoto, "We believed we had more time, but political winds change faster than corporate strategies." Now the question is whether Toyota can adjust quickly enough to hold its position in the American market, or whether this is just the beginning of a deeper unraveling. And as Toyota falters, competitors are circling. In the last 2 months alone, Hyundai and BYD have ramped up their U.S. marketing efforts. They're slashing prices, promoting EV tax credit eligibility, and flooding showrooms with inventory. Hyundai saw an 18% jump in U.S. EV sales in April. Meanwhile, BYD, China's EV powerhouse, quietly locked down 2 new dealership agreements in California and Texas. One Korean executive told Reuters off the record, "Toyota's pain is our opening." The insult to injury? Some of these competitors are shielded from the very tariffs hurting Toyota. That's because they already assemble key parts, like batteries or entire vehicles, within North America, or route them through tariff-exempt trade paths, such as Mexico. In other words, while Toyota played by the old globalization playbook, others were already adapting to the new one. This is no longer just an economic issue. It's becoming a diplomatic flashpoint. Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry released a rare public statement in late April, expressing serious concern over the U.S. measures that disproportionately harm Japanese automakers. Behind closed doors, diplomatic efforts are underway. Kyoto News reported that Japan has formally requested bilateral consultations under the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. They're asking for tariff exemptions on Japanese-made EVs. So far, Washington remains firm. The U.S. Trade Representative's office has defended the tariffs as essential to safeguarding domestic manufacturing interests. And that raises a deeper question. In this new era of hardball economics, does being a long-standing ally of the United States still buy you trade advantages? The transition from Biden to Trump has turned U.S. trade policy on its head. With Trump back in office, tariffs are back in fashion, and American industrial policy has veered sharply toward protectionism. But the strategy is uneven and unpredictable. U.S. automakers benefit from Toyota's disadvantage, but they're also vulnerable to blowback. Japanese retaliation, battery supply disruptions, or broader trade escalation could easily rebound on American companies. Executives at GM and Ford are reportedly uneasy. One industry figure told the U.S. Sun, "We're not against fair competition, but what we're seeing now feels more like political whiplash." Even lawmakers are split. In Michigan, there's growing support for more protective measures. In Texas, home to thousands of Toyota jobs, there's mounting pressure for exemptions. And in California, the debate is tangled up in broader climate goals and EV policy. This isn't a grand strategy. It's a tug-of-war that's spilling over into global factories, market dynamics, and geopolitical alliances. Toyota's leadership understands this isn't just a temporary setback. It's a new reality, one where rules-based globalization no longer governs trade, and companies must adapt or fall behind. The company is now redesigning its entire North American supply strategy. That includes localizing battery manufacturing in North Carolina and exploring a $3.5 billion expansion of EV part production in Mexico, allowing it to work within USMCA trade limits while avoiding the harshest tariffs. But even this pivot has its limits. One Toyota executive put it plainly, "We built our strategy around a stable, rules-based order. That order is gone." Toyota's larger problem is strategic inertia. It bet conservatively on hybrids, was late to fully embrace electrification, and now finds itself squeezed between U.S. policy shifts, Chinese technological acceleration, and tightening European environmental rules, all evolving faster than Toyota's boardroom responses. And Toyota isn't alone. This $1.3 billion hit is just one part of a wider trend: the disintegration of globalized auto manufacturing as we knew it. In just the past year, the EU launched an anti-subsidy probe into Chinese EVs. China retaliated by imposing export controls on graphite, a critical EV battery material. The U.S. redefined tax credits to exclude foreign-made batteries. India raised import tariffs to force localization of auto production. Trade in vehicles and parts is no longer about efficiency. It's about control, about political leverage, about geographic loyalty. Toyota's loss is more than a number. It's a flashing red light. The era of seamless, frictionless supply chains is over. And what lies ahead is a battlefield where survival depends not just on engineering or brand strength, but on geopolitical agility. The rules have changed. The players must now adapt. Because in today's auto industry, building cars isn't just a business. It's a national strategy. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.